dive right into a rapid-fire breakdown of the hidden drivers behind our financial behaviors. Because, let's be honest, when it comes to money, we all have a story we tell ourselves about why we do what we do. But as you're going to see, that story, well, it's usually pretty incomplete.
Just think about your own bank account for a second. We absolutely love to believe that we're completely in control of our money, right? That we're sitting right there in the driver's seat making perfectly rational, calculated choices. But what if those choices are mostly just chemical? I mean, what if your last big purchase wasn't actually a choice at all, but literally just a biological reaction in your brain?
This brings us to a really massive clash in how experts view human behavior. On one hand, you've got the classical economic view. That side looks at humans as perfectly rational actors, carefully weighing all the pros and cons. But on the other hand, you have the messy, biological reality of neurofinance, and that side suggests we're actually highly emotional actors, completely driven by instinct and brain chemistry.
Now, the whole foundation of that classical view leans heavily on something called the efficient market hypothesis. Classical economics basically assumes that we logically match our means to our ends to maximize our own wealth. The general assumption is that, hey, if you just give a person the right financial information, they're automatically going to make the most optimal wealth-maximizing choice. Makes sense in theory, right?
But this exact tension between logic and emotion is why there is such a lively debate in the financial world today. A lot of traditional economists point out that popular books, like The Psychology of Money, brilliantly capture human storytelling and emotional behavior. But they also argue that those books sometimes lack really rigorous economic foundations. For instance, they might skip clearly defining money as a medium of exchange based on subjective values, which is a foundational principle established by economists like Carl Menger way back in the late 19th century. So, to get the real full picture here, we literally can't just look at dry economic models, but we also can't just rely on psychological anecdotes.
To truly understand why we act the way we do, we have to turn to the emerging science of neurofinance. And honestly, this is where things get incredibly cool. Neurofinance basically takes neuroscience, behavioral economics, and psychology and tosses them all into a giant blender. The goal? To see exactly what is physically happening inside our brains when our own money is on the line.
And they aren't just making educated guesses here. Researchers are literally wiring people up using some wild advanced biological tools. We're talking real-time facial expression analysis, eye tracking, and even galvanic skin response to measure sweat gland activity. And the results are pretty wild. They prove that when we're confronted with financial risk or any kind of uncertainty, our emotional, chemical responses almost constantly override our logical cognitive processes, every single time.
And guess what? Marketers completely weaponize this biology against us every single day. When you see words like flash sale or limited offer, your brain doesn't stop to run some neat little cost-benefit analysis. No way. Those words completely bypass your logic and trigger a massive hit of dopamine. The brain's feel-good chemical. Actually, when you think about it, you aren't really buying the product at all. You're just buying the dopamine rush.
But hey, it's not just immediate chemicals pulling the strings here. Beyond the quick dopamine hits, our decisions are heavily ruled by deep-seated money scripts. These are essentially unconscious beliefs about money and life that we usually form way back in childhood. We pick them up from direct or indirect messages from our parents, our environment, you name it. And the crazy part is, we drag these scripts right into adulthood and just unconsciously run them on pure autopilot.
Let me give you a great example from the sources. Take a father named Dustin. His wife simply brings up the idea of paying for their daughter's braces. Pretty standard stuff, right? But instead of having a normal conversation, Dustin totally explodes. He starts shouting that they absolutely aren't going to just fork over thousands of dollars just to help the damn dentist buy a new Mercedes. So why the super intense reaction? Well, Dustin isn't actually reacting to the braces. And he's not really reacting to his wife either. He's reacting to an unexamined money script. What he's really hearing is an echo from his past. It's likely from his own childhood, where money was probably incredibly scarce, and professionals like dentists were viewed with deep suspicion. That trauma and his past environment created this rigid rule in his head that he is still just blindly following today.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we all carry our own contextual, partial truths into adulthood. Think about it. You might have grown up learning that it's most important to save no matter what. Or maybe you internalize the idea that rich people just take advantage of others. Or perhaps your script is that your self-worth equals your net worth. Now, these scripts might have made perfect sense in the very specific environment where you grew up, for sure, but they can become incredibly destructive when you misapply them to your current adult